So as we know, in probability theory and measure theory, Lebesgue measure is an extremely important measure or thing that we need to understand very, very clearly. And with respect to this Lebesgue measure, we have defined the Lebesgue integral also, the integration with respect to that particular measure, that is the Lebesgue measure. And we have also seen that we can define another measure from, as for example, suppose we have a measure mu, and from there we can also define or extend that measure to another measure nu, having some interesting properties. And in this entire domain, absolute continuity plays a very, very important role. So today I am planning to discuss a few problems, a few typical problems involving Lebesgue integral, Lebesgue measure, and maybe some another new measure defined with respect to the given measure, like that. And while doing that, I will discuss that we have used one very important technique, which is given in terms of a theorem known as Fubini's theorem. That means how we can change the order of integral. But one important point one should note: whenever we use these theorems or these conditions, these results, be very, very careful to check whether all the conditions under which this theorem has been developed, whether all these conditions are satisfied or not. So we are going to discuss few problems in these areas. So as I already mentioned, that today we are again going to discuss few problems. We will discuss mainly problems on Lebesgue measure and Lebesgue integral, problems on measure, and one problem on absolutely continuous function. The first problem it goes like this: that f be a real value Lebesgue measurable function on 0 to infinity. Note that 0 side is closed such that there are two conditions. First one is f is Lebesgue integrable on every finite sub-interval of 0 to infinity. And the second condition is limit as x goes to infinity fx equals to c. C is any real number, it belongs to the real line. Then all we have to show that limit a goes to infinity 1 by a integral over the closed interval 0 to a f d mu l equals to c. Actually this capital L stands for the Lebesgue measure, and nothing special about that. The proof goes like this. If we note to the condition 2, second condition, immediately there is a limit of a function which is finite, which is a real number. If we look at the second condition, we see that this is nothing but the limit of a function which is a real number. So we know that for every epsilon greater than 0, there exists a capital N such that modulus of fx minus c would be less than epsilon whenever x is greater than n. That is the definition of a limit of a function. Now consider a value a, of course a real number which is greater than n. Then we have modulus of 1 by a integral over the closed interval 0 to a f d mu l minus c. So this modulus, it is clearly equals to, we can write 1 by a modulus of 1 by a integral over closed interval 0 to a f minus c d mu l. This quantity is clearly less than equals to, if we just replace f minus c by mod of f minus c, which is known to us. And then we split this entire integral over the two intervals. One is 0 to capital N closed interval, and another is capital N to a. So this quantity is equals to this quantity, which let's denote this thing by 2. Then by equation 1 we have, whenever, because equation 1, that means for limit we have considered whenever x is greater than n. So whenever x belongs to capital N to a, the closed interval, it will imply that mod of fx minus c is less than epsilon. So we can immediately use this fact in equation 2, so that we get modulus of 1 by a integral over closed interval of 0 to a f of d mu l minus c, mod of entire quantity, is less than equals to, the first part in equation 2 remains same, but the second part is replaced by, can be, if we use this inequality, second part can be written as a minus capital N by a into epsilon. And note that by condition 1, it is given that modulus of f minus c is integrable on the closed interval 0 to n, and so it is clear that integral 0 to n modulus of f minus c d mu l is finite and it does not depend on a. This is only the integral part. So we can, and also the second part, that is if we take the limit of the second part, that is limit of a goes to infinity, a by n by a into epsilon, the a by n, a minus a by n, a minus n by a goes to 1 as a goes to infinity. Moreover, limit as a goes to infinity, a minus capital N by a into epsilon is nothing but epsilon, because a minus capital N by a goes to 1 as a goes to infinity. Now, if we take limits on both sides of 2, we immediately have limit a goes to infinity 1 by a integral over 0 to n modulus f minus c d mu l equals to 0. Or similarly, since this is a limit, we can immediately write that this quantity, modulus of this entire quantity as a goes to infinity would be less than or equals to epsilon. And since epsilon is arbitrary, we can have limit a goes to infinity 1 by a integral 0 to a, integral over 0 to a closed interval f d mu l minus c equals to 0. So the proof is complete. Now let us move on to another more concrete problem on Lebesgue measurable function. Let g be a Lebesgue measurable real valued function on 0 to 1. 0 to 1 is a closed interval. Consider a function fxy, it's a bivariate function, fxy equals to 2gx minus 3gy, and this function is Lebesgue integrable over 0 to 1 closed interval cross 0 to 1 closed interval. That means in the two-dimensional box or square kind of thing. So that g is Lebesgue integrable over 0 to 1. So the proof goes like this. First note that f of xy is Lebesgue integrable over 0 1 cross 0 1 is given. Then we immediately have integral over 0 cross 0 1 cross 0 1 f of xy d of mu l x cross mu l x. Modulus of this quantity is less than infinity. So let's call this equation 1. So this comes from the very definition of the Lebesgue integrability. Now we apply Fubini's theorem directly. So integral, let's start from the very basic integral over 0 1 cross 0 1 fxy d mu lx cross mu lx, which is actually boils down to integral 0 to 1 fxy dx dy, and just replace fxy by the actual expression of fxy, which is twice gx minus 3gy. So which is equals to, if we just split this two integrals, double integral 0 to 1 each integral 2gx dx dy minus integral 0 to 1 3gy dx dy. Now by Fubini's theorem we change the order of integral, and it can be checked that all conditions of Fubini's theorem will be satisfied. So what we have is twice 0 to 1 gx into integral 0 to 1 dy, the whole thing of dx, minus 3 0 to 1 gy into integral over 0 to 1 dx into y dy. And if we simplify this entire quantity, we will have 2 integral 0 to 1 gx dx minus 3 integral 0 to 1 gy dy minus 0 to 1 gx dx. Now by equation 1, it is clear that modulus of integral 0 to 1 gx dx is less than infinity, because the left hand side of this integral is finite. So it is clear that integral 0 to 1 gx modulus of that less than infinity, which means that g is also Lebesgue integrable over the interval 0 1. So that's the proof basically. So now let us consider another very interesting problem with respect to two measures. So initially we have seen that actually basically we have dealt with a kind of product measure, that is d of mu lx into mu lx. Here we consider a problem that is based on two positive measures, mu and nu. So first let mu and nu be two positive measures on a measurable space omega script A. Then show that first part is if for every epsilon greater than 0 there exists a delta greater than 0 such that nu e less than epsilon for every e which belongs to script A with mu e less than delta, then nu is absolutely continuous with respect to mu. And the converse of A holds if nu is a finite positive measure. This is very important. So converse will be true only when nu is not only positive but also finite. The proof is a kind of routine work. Since it is given that for every epsilon greater than 0, we can always find a delta greater than 0 such that nu of e less than epsilon for every e belongs to script A with mu e less than delta. We take e belongs to script A with mu e equals to 0. Now, since it is known that mu e is less than delta for any arbitrarily small delta, so we can always get one e belonging to script A with mu e equals to 0. Then for every epsilon greater than 0, it naturally implies that nu e less than epsilon. Again, epsilon is arbitrary, so this will imply nu e equals to 0. So that completes the proof. To proof B, let us first suppose that nu is a finite positive measure and mu is a positive measure, such that nu is absolutely continuous with respect to mu. All we have to show is that the condition in A holds. That will complete the proof. Now, if possible, again we will do in a kind of negative kind of proof, like if possible we assume that this condition is not true. That means condition in A doesn't hold good. This means that if there exists epsilon greater than 0 such that for all n belongs to script n, there exists En belongs to script A such that mu of En is less than delta and nu of E greater than equals to epsilon. Because the condition A doesn't hold good. Now take delta equals to 1 by n square. Then immediately we have summation n belongs to script n, that is a set of natural numbers, mu of En less than equals to summation 1 by n square, n equals to 1 to infinity. Now this is less than infinity because summation 1 by n square is a convergence series, it's converging. And now we can easily apply Borel-Cantelli lemma, and which immediately gives us mu of lim sup of En n goes to infinity equals to 0. Now set E equals to lim sup n goes to infinity En, then we have mu E equals to 0 naturally. Now since it is given that nu is absolutely continuous with respect to mu, then we immediately have nu E equals to 0. Now again, noting the fact that nu of omega is less than infinity because nu is a positive measure and nu is a finite positive measure. So we immediately have nu of E is equals to nu of lim sup En, which is greater than equals to lim sup nu of En as n goes to infinity, and naturally that is greater than equals to nu of En, and from the previous page we have this is greater than equals to epsilon. Now we have assumed that we got that nu e equals to 0, but now we got nu e greater than equals to epsilon, so which is a contradiction. So that means the given condition A also holds, so the proof is complete. Next, the same kind of concept, but absolutely with respect to absolutely continuous function. So let f be a real valued absolutely continuous function on AB, so that 1 by f is also absolutely continuous on AB if f is never 0 on AB. Now AB we consider as a closed interval. Since we are dealing with an interval which is closed, which is a subset of the real line a to b and is closed, so naturally the closed interval a to b is a subset of our real line and it is compact, and f is also continuous on it. So that means f has a minimum on it. That means minimum exists, so the minimum belongs to this interval. Since f not equals to 0, so we can immediately have there exists some m belongs to 0 to infinity, that means positive, rather strictly positive, such that minimum of mod fx, minimum over x belongs to closed interval a to b equals to m. Now it is given that f is absolutely continuous. So for any given epsilon greater than 0, there always exists delta greater than 0, such that for any finite family of non-overlapping closed intervals p, that means we consider a finite partition, family of non-overlapping closed intervals rather, so p, which is closed interval of ai bi, I equals to 1 to up to n in ab, such that summation I equals to 1 to n bi minus ai is less than delta will automatically imply summation I equals to 1 to n modulus of f of ai minus f of bi less than epsilon. Since this is mod, we can write f bi minus f ai, but for this problem we can also write, for this problem, or rather we can always write f ai minus f bi because there is a modulus sign, and this will be useful for the present problem. To show 1 by f is absolutely continuous, again we have to start on that particular partition that we have just considered with respect to this function. That means we need to check the behavior of this function 1 by f on this partition p. So summation I equals to 1 to n modulus of 1 minus fi, 1 by fi, fai minus 1 by fbi. So if we simplify, we get summation I equals to 1 to n modulus of fai minus fbi divided by modulus of fai into fbi, which is less than equals to, since we know that minimum of fai, modulus of that is small m, so 1 by that means there will be a less than equal to sign 1 by m square, summation I equals to 1 to n modulus of fai minus fbi, but this quantity is less than epsilon, we have just seen, so this entire quantity is less than equals to epsilon by m square. The m square is fixed, m is fixed, but epsilon is arbitrary. So this quantity summation I equals to 1 to n modulus of 1 by fai minus 1 by fbi is arbitrarily small, or rather is smaller than this arbitrary small positive number epsilon. That means it immediately tells us that 1 by f is also absolutely continuous. That means the proof is complete. So we have discussed actually exactly 4 problems based on Lebesgue integrals, some limits of integrals which are Lebesgue integrals, Lebesgue measures, and also one problem with respect to when we have 2 measures, nu which is absolutely continuous with respect to mu. So absolutely continuous function or absolute continuity plays a very important role, and we have discussed one complete problem on only absolute continuity or absolutely continuous function. So the important thing is that we should note the techniques used in solving these problems. These are sometimes there are some subtle techniques, sometimes the techniques are although very elegant, but we need to remember that these are the techniques that we can apply not only to this kind of problems but to any other problems. As for example, whenever we have 2 or more integrals, or let's say 2 integrals, for the sake of simplicity, we can always, if we get stuck at any point, we can try to think that whether we can apply Fubini's theorem. That might make our life very simple. But again, I must emphasize on the fact that please be careful to check whether all the conditions under a particular under which the theorem or result has been established, whether all the conditions are really satisfied for the given problem. That is a very important thing that we should point out, we should note. So that's all I want to say. So just try to understand those 4 problems and the techniques that have been used in solving those problems.